Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to add swipe to delete functionality to a list. First up and off, I'm just going to go ahead and set up my data. I'm just going to make a real simple array. If you're doing this in a real app, you'll probably be calling some sort of API or maybe loading from some sort of database or storage. So I'm just going to give each row an ID, and I'm also going to give some corresponding text that I'm going to display, but your data could take whatever format you want. But the ID is important because that's how we're going to identify the row that we want to delete when we swipe across. Just duplicating all the rows, I'm going to go ahead and update the ID and the text for each one. I'm going to do this in a few stages. I'm going to show you just adding the rows to a flat list, then I'm going to show you how to swipe to delete, then I'm going to show you how to add that sort of animation and a button for swiping to delete. So with your flat list, you're going to have this render item function that's going to, for each item, render your item. And that's how it's going to display inside your app. I'm creating a new ListItem.js file here that I'm going to use as my item component. So export default function ListItem. I'm wanting to pass that item in there so that I can show it. And I'm also going to want to import a few things from React Native. So I'm just going to start with the text. I'm just going to return just a normal text component with the items text. Now heading back to my app.js, I'm going to go ahead and complete my render item. You can see I'm passing in that item. I'm going to change this to a safe area view just so that my list items start showing within the safe area, which is particularly important for iOS devices as they have that screen that goes sort of the whole length of the screen. So having a safe area view is only going to show up within like the main sort of bounds of the screen. I'm also going to add a flat list, which is just basically a basic React Native list component. I'm going to pass my data in there. I'm also going to pass my function that is used to render my items. I'm also passing my key extractor, which is basically something that maps my item to my ID for the item. And I forgot that I'd actually used item.txt here, so I'm updating that inside my list item component. So you can see I've saved it and I've got a few different items on screen based on my data that I've provided. They're not super stylish. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of styling now. So I'm applying a style to this flat list just so that I can get an idea of where the bounds are. And you can see that it's only sort of taking up the width of the longest item, but I want it to sort of take up that full width. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set align self to be stretch. And that's going to make it that full width of the screen. You can see that looks a little bit better now. So I can delete background red. I'm also going to add my function here, which is going to be called when I want to delete an item. So what that's going to do is it's going to take that ID and it's going to filter out that data and then set the data based on which ID is passed in. It'll filter out that ID. So I'm checking that item.id is not equal to the ID. So any item that has an ID that's not equal to the ID will be in the updated data array, and then I'm setting that data, and that's going to trigger the re-render on screen. I'm going to pass this on delete to my list item. Currently I'm not handling on delete within my list item, so I'm going to go ahead and work on adding that. But first I'm going to also do a little bit of basic styling on my different items. Just setting up the style for my item. Make it flex 1 so it sort of takes up that whole width. Making that padding so that it's got a little bit of spacing around it. I'm going to set the border bottom width to 1 so I can see a border there. That's going to create like a little divider between my different list items, and I'm going to set a colour for that border bottom colour. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually return a view that contains that text. And I'll go and progressively make this more complex, but this is a good starting point. So you can see now I've got some padding around that text and also a bottom barrier, but if I did any swiping, it wouldn't do anything because I haven't got anything that sort of registers swipe actions, which is why I've imported the pan responder, which I'm going to work with now. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a pan responder. There's a few different configs I need to pass through there. So I've got like on move should set pan responder as one example. And I'll go ahead and show you how I would set this up. I've also got this on start should set pan responder. So I'm going to set that to true. To return true always. And the same for on move. That's just going to make sure that I'm registering my swipes properly. On pan responder move, I'm going to want to go ahead and register the action. and on-pan responder release. This is where I actually check what the gesture state is, and from there I can go ahead and delete my item if I have dragged to the left, which is like a typical expected gesture on mobile devices. I'm setting the threshold as -50. So it's negative when you are going to the left and positive when you're going to the right. And I say I want it less than because if it's bigger, if it's like less than -50, then that would still be something that would be considered a left swipe in my opinion. So when that happens, I want to delete the item. I'm going to use that on-pan responder move a little bit later. I'll show you what I'm doing with it there then. I can pass that to my view that I want to register the swipes on. And you can see if I swipe to the right, nothing happens. If I swipe to the left, it's going to delete. Just reloading those because they're just stored in my app file itself, so they reload when I delete them. That's expected behavior here. Now, when you are deleting inside an app, most of the time you're going to see a delete button come across when you swipe so that you can actually choose the action. That reduces sort of like user error where they might actually not mean to delete something, but they've accidentally deleted it. So I'm going to go ahead and add my delete button now. For this, I'm going to have a touchable opacity, and on press, I'm going to call on delete. With the item ID. Inside there, I've got my text, and that's just going to say delete. Now let's see how that looks. It looks pretty ugly. But you can see that it's going to work when I click on it. And you can see it works, but that's not very pretty, so let's go ahead and make that a little bit more styled. My touchable opacity and my text, which says like hello world and stuff like that, are in an item container. So I'm going to set that flex direction to row, and I'm going to apply the style against the item container effectively. You can see now it's in a row, and that looks a little bit better, but there's still like a bit of work to do here. So let's get to styling that delete button. First thing you think about with a delete button is you're probably going to want some sort of width and height. This is just going to allow you to sort of easily set where it is on the screen. It's going to make it look a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and apply that style to the touchable opacity. Then as I make changes, we're going to save, and you can sort of see the changes as I make them. So you can see that sort of centered it a little bit. It looks a little bit funny still, but we'll continue on. Background color, we're going to make that red just because that's what we typically see in app, and it's what the user might expect to see. And I'm just going to justify that content in the center, and it should look a lot better once I've done this. I'm also going to align my item center. You can see that looks quite good, but it's still a little bit funny looking. I'm going to go ahead and reload. I'm going to set position absolute. This is going to allow me to move it off the screen And you can also see that sort of makes it look better in terms of where it is. So I'm going to move it off the screen by moving it 100 to the right because its width is 100. So it's off the screen by 100. I'm going to also make the color of the text white. You obviously can't see that right now because it's off the screen. So you're going to have to trust me a bit on that. And I'm going to make it bold as well. I'm then applying the style of the text. Next up, I'm going to want to create an animated view. The reason I'm wanting to do that is I am wanting to animate that slide in of the delete button. Inside my item container, I'm going to create a new view. That's my animated view. I'm going to wrap that around my whole row. The reason I want to wrap that around my whole row is that I am wanting to make sure that when I slide across, the whole thing sort of slides. So including my text and the button. That sort of seems to be quite similar to what people expect when they're using delete functionality in apps. So when moving, I'm going to go ahead and sort of set that animated view to sort of translate to where it's moved to. This might actually be something that could be removed. It depends what sort of style you're wanting to show, because this can be like a little bit, I find it a little bit buggy. I could probably improve the code here a bit, but I think for the purpose of this demo, it's a good demonstration of some, like giving you a bit more fine-grained control, I guess, over the translation and how you want it to behave. So now when that is swiped left, I no longer want to delete because I'm going to show the delete button instead, which the user can use. Instead, I'm going to spring the animated view to a particular value, and I'm going to use the native driver. And I'm going to need to call .start on that to start that animation. Now, if it is not being swiped left, so it might be swiped right or it might just be tapped on screen, then I'm just going to want to reset it back to how it was. I can use this spring and I just set the to value to 0 and use that native driver once again. So you can see I've swiped, I get a delete button. You can see that little glitch is sort of showing up there where it's sort of stopped. That's what I'm talking about with how you might want to remove that on-pan responder move to make it a little bit better, I guess. You can see that doing other actions makes it slide back. I do quite like that dragging effect that the on-pan responder move gives. It just doesn't, it needs a bit of refinement. You can see when I click delete it sort of popped back all the others. If you're wanting to keep those, then you're going to have to use ref. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. It's pretty simple. Use ref.current against the animated value and the pan responder. And I'm going to need to import that from React. So now I'm swiping. You can see that bug once again. Swiping. And if I delete one, you can see all the others remain. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. If you have, please like and subscribe for more content. All my code will be available on GitHub.